All right, we're going to get started. Thank you for joining us today. This is the unapologetic sales pitch on Holganix Bio 800 lawn. As I mentioned before, my name is Rob McCoy. I am the National Sales Manager for Holganix. I've been in the business for quite some time. That definitely ages me. But the picture is actually not that long ago. So hopefully I'm holding up no matter how many applications I did in the past. It did not wear me down. I have built and sold 2 lawn care companies. I work with a tremendous amount of lawn and landscape companies, along with a lot of professional sports teams and golf courses. So I've seen a lot of examples of how Bio 800 lawn, and for that matter, any type of Bio 800 has been used and how it's been successful. Some really surprising results. I can remember early on when with Holganix, how shocked I was, and even before when we found this technology, before it was called, before Holganix existed, when we were in lawn care, it was shocking then. But the more examples that come out, the more credibility we get, and that this is not snake oil. So you will hear a very unfiltered version today of why you should use Bio 800 Plus. I would encourage you to put your questions into the question box, so that as we get to the end, I can make sure that I address those. And also there will be a follow-up email that will go out that will have some links on there and a recording of the webinar in case you have to hop off, or if I'm really boring and you want to skim through this later on. All right, so the agenda for today, we're going to go over what Bio 800 is, what Bio 800 lawn can do for you, and how do you use it, and then case studies and different data. And as I mentioned, we'll go over the resources, but that's going to get emailed out to you as well. And I believe through all these clips, there's the pictures in the background actually hold some value. So this is the Wilmington Blue Rocks. They're a AA affiliate, and they are actually 15 minutes from our warehouse. So they use a variety of Holganix products. They actually just did a field reconstruction that had been planned for a few years, where they basically, because of the leveling of the field and things like that, where they had to redo it, and they relied heavily on Bio 800 for the grow in there. But they've used Bio 800, Blue Sky. They've used some of our granular formulations to build up organic matter in that soil. And as you can see, they have really great results. And one of the interesting bits of information on this is when they do 900 events per year on that field, and get it to hold up like that. So multiple events every single day, from concerts to baseball games to dog races. Like they have this thing where a monkey rides a dog, and it's so they, like the amount of things that they do on that field are pretty crazy. So Holganix Bio 800 lawn. I'm going to go into what it is before we go over what it does. So there's over 800 different species of active, diverse microorganisms. That's a really critical point to the success of the product. Nowadays, we see a lot of different biological products, or even products that claim to be biologically focused. And that's one of the main differentiators right off the bat. Look at the species of biology that are in the product. I have not seen another product that in a retail location, where you can, where a landscape contractor or a lawn care company would go, that had over 8 species of microorganisms in it. So typically they'll just boost the numbers and have that really targeted approach. But as we'll go through in a little bit, you'll see why that may not be the best approach. There's also over 8 sources of microbial food and 5 sources of nutrient enhancers. So some of the examples of that, obviously everybody knows that Bio 800 Plus starts off as a compost tea. Then we are basically manufacturing it through a specific process and specific seed that we use to incorporate the families of microorganisms into that to make sure that we have the balance that we're looking for. You have endo and ectomycorrhizae in there. You have trichoderma, nematodes, protozoa. God, there's yucca, humic, fulvic, amino acids, kelp, gluten, you name it, it's in there. Basically, and I was just on a call with a farmer earlier today, and we were talking about this. He was in Alberta, Canada, and they obviously have a shorter growing season, but you don't have time to figure out what's going on in the soil. If you're not getting the results that you think you should be getting, how are you going to know what's missing and be able to take that targeted approach? You need to be able to add an entire consortium into the soil that's going to have that entire ecosystem in place so that it can fill in the gaps where it needs to, and make it so that you have a completely functional, and maybe functional is not the right word, but efficient soil, so that it can convert nutrients at a fast rate and make sure that the plant has everything available to it that it needs. So you can see that, it will reduce the need for inputs, kind of to the point I was just making. If anything works more efficiently, then you're going to need less input for that. So if you're typically putting down 4 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet, which is a pretty common starting point for the United States, you could definitely get a reduction right off the bat with those fertilizers. And that's a critical point nowadays because of how fertilizer prices are skyrocketing. We see it with some of our raw materials, but I can tell you that the Bio 800 only had a 5% price increase this year, which is pretty standard for products within this industry on any given year. So when you take that into account, that you can create efficiency with a product that's not jumping up in price and reduce your fertilizer, that's critical at this time of our lives in the lawn care and landscape industry. It's going to boost the resilience against the stressors, disease, insect activity. With some of the diseases, you're going to have it will act as a curative, and I can get in trouble for saying that because it's not registered as a fungicide. But we've seen it happen. We've seen it happen over and over. It will definitely act as a preventative as well. But when it comes to insects, it's more about building up the integrity of the plant itself to use its own defenses. So when you have a healthy foundation, good soil, good root system for that plant, and it gets attacked by anything, it's going to be able to fend that off and bounce back pretty quickly. That's one of when I mentioned golf courses earlier. One of the reasons that golf courses use it is because of the wear and tear that they naturally will have with people playing golf on those turf surfaces. Specifically the putting greens, and putting greens, if you have any good golfers out there, there's direct shots onto those putting greens all the time that are causing damage. Although it doesn't seem significant over time, it will really cause a negative effect. Par 3 tee boxes are constantly getting gouged every single day. That's why they move the tee markers all the time to try and space out that damage. But the recovery time is significantly faster. And on that point, there's a sod farm that I worked with since I started at Holganix, and it was interesting when I was out there visiting with them, and we went to a few different fields where they were growing sod, and you could see it at all different stages. And we went out to this one, and it had not been watered in forever. And there was no rain in the forecast. And I mean, the soil's cracked and everything. And there was actually a crack that was, I could fit my hand into. So it was really dried out. And I said to the owner of the sod farm, I was like, aren't you worried about this? Like, are you going to have to come out here and reseed this? And his answer was, not if we're using your stuff. All these spots are going to fill in. So that was really encouraging to hear. And when you think about like some of the properties that you're working on and the problems that you're dealing with, when you know that you can have a hold of bare grass the size of your fist that's going to fill in just because of proper soil practices, that's very reassuring. You just got to do the applications and give it some time. It'll speed up seed germination. This is really what our farmers are focused on. I mean, we care about it in the lawn and landscape side of things because, let's be honest, all of our customers are typically impatient or they just haven't had the right expectation set. So, regardless of what it is, the faster you can get seed germination, the faster you can get a plant to a mature enough stage where it can start to really support itself rather than relying on a starter fertilizer or something like that, it is extremely beneficial. That happens through the increased root growth. We see, and a lot of the pictures that you see in the background are focusing on that root growth. And then the soil health, obviously, everything that we stated in the first part of this is because of the soil health. I was working with a lawn care company in New York, and they had a really interesting soil test that I had never seen before, and it was kind of had your standard detail on it, but it had this one extra number where it was on a 0 to 25 rating. It rated soil health, and they showed it to me. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Do you know like where you fall in on this? And they said, well, here's some, they showed me a few of them, and here's a new customer. Here's a problem customer. And we went through those, and the new customer was around a 5 or a 6. Their current customer, which I don't know how many years they had that customer, was around a 15. And then I saw this other one, and it was a 28 out of 25. And I said, what is this one? And that was actually the turf that they had at their shop that had always been treated with Bio 800. And they said, yeah, we thought that you would find this humorous. I don't know how they're rating that, whether it's on the cation exchange capacity or something like that. But to say it was off the charts, it was literally off the charts. All right, let's go into the next thing. So this picture in the background is Sedgwick County Zoo. It's actually not Oklahoma, it's in Kansas. And you can look it up online. There's some good write-ups for it. It's actually an award-winning zoo in the middle of Kansas. And this elephant enclosure, if you look at it closely, you can see the grass covering the ground. When we started working with them, it was actually the reverse. So you can see the dirt areas that are exposed. That was about how much turf they actually had there, and where there's grass right now was all dirt. So they had tried everything. They reseeded on a pretty regular basis, but just because of the tremendous amount of wear and tear that those elephants, I mean, you could see 6 elephants in the picture. I don't remember the total number of elephants that they have, but it's a total of, I want to say 5 acres. So it's not a huge enclosure when you consider the animals grazing there and just the heavy weight wear and tear that they'll cause. And they walk the same paths all the time. So when they started using Bio 800, they couldn't put down any synthetic fertilizers. So they just kept pounding it with Bio 800 on a monthly basis at the regular maintenance rate. And they were able to get all the seed to germinate and mature, and they were able to find the recovery that they needed to withstand these elephants in the enclosure. Once they saw these results, they started using it all over the zoo. And because it's an all-natural product, you don't have to worry about endangered species or harming any of the animals or anything like that, or what plants you're working with. because it's really focusing on the soil and providing the plants with what they need based off of what the plant is looking for. So it's not forcing anything on the plant or overloading the soil with any unnatural input. So what can Bio 800 lawn do for me? Increase your business's sustainability. I mean, it's a huge differentiator in our market now. A lot of companies out there will talk about like, yeah, we're, natural or organic is in like 50% of the names out there. And even I can tell you when I was running a lawn care company, we used to say we do organic based lawn care. So what did that truly mean? It meant that we tried to use organic products when we could use organic products. We used all synthetic weed controls. The majority of our fertilizers were synthetic. We would typically incorporate an organic fertilizer at some point in time in the year, but we couldn't stay with the organic fertilizers because they were too expensive and they just didn't produce a result that our customers were going to be happy with. We used, I don't want to say any of the companies that we use because I don't want to badmouth anybody, but it just didn't hold up because when it comes to lawn care, you're judged on aesthetics. So that's, you can have the greenest lawn, you can have no weeds. That doesn't necessarily mean the lawn's healthy. As soon as those treatments fall out of schedule and there's too much time between them, your results can dramatically dip. That's where something like Bio 800 lawn comes into play. You're building up the health while using the synthetics at the same time. You're able to cut back on the synthetics, cut back on that dependency that the plant is developing, and really have the plant start to sustain itself. When we compare Bio 800 lawn and Bio 800 tree and shrub is typically used on lawn and landscape, or not lawn, but within landscapes. And if you're doing the program with Bio 800 tree and shrub for your, say that you have a tree and shrub program for your customers, you typically don't need fertilizer. You're not trying to get these plants to grow at a faster rate. You're trying to make it so they grow at their normal rate and that they're healthy. Well, if you're trying to achieve plant health and not a specific color like we are on lawns, then focusing on the soil is totally the way to go. When it comes to lawns, it matters if your customer's lawn is greener than the neighbor's who uses a competitor. That's where the fertilizers come into play and keeping that color right where you need it. But it becomes significantly easier with Bio 800 because you just gain predictability. And I used to always say, the end of the summer is where you separate the men from the boys in lawn care, because we usually had gone through and I had a lawn care company in the Philadelphia market that stretched down into the Baltimore and DC markets. And we would almost all the time have a drought for some period of time where we just weren't getting any rain. They talked about water restrictions and things like that, but most of our customers in this area, they didn't have irrigation systems, so it wasn't like they could, stay on a schedule just trying to remember to turn their hose on and move their sprinkler or something like that. So we would really suffer the consequences there. This is the type of product that will make it so that you're going to have a noticeable difference. When things get really tough, that's when your lawns are going to look significantly better than your competitors if you're using this product. It says on here, staying on trend. I call it the Whole Foods trend. The Whole Foods generation is here. They're the ones that are purchasing lawn care and landscaping now. They want to feel good about their purchase, but they don't want to sacrifice the results. So it's not all about doing everything 100% natural. It's about being environmentally conscious and knowing how to get a result. That's one of the reasons why I like this product, is because, there's products out there that have all the right things in it, I would say, but really don't do anything substantial, because you're looking for a significant result. Sure, you could put, if you pull apart Bio 800 and you use something like a yucca extract, the yucca extract can be beneficial. It's a way of making sure that the weed controls work better. It's a spreader sticker. And you could not have to keep redoing weed controls because it works better. That's just the yucca extract. If you added in endo and ecto mycorrhizae, sure, you'd have better colonization on the root system of the turf and be able to pull in more nutrients. And you will have a positive effect from it. But are you truly changing the makeup of the soil? You're changing the makeup of that root system, and that could be temporary, because as soon as you pound it with the inputs again, the endo and ecto mycorrhizae could find that they're not needed and flake off. So it could be a temporary fix. We're trying to rebuild that ecosystem, which is a really delicate ecosystem within the soil. And to bring up another point that I think is critical, why do we need this? Why isn't it there already? If it's so critical, how are we getting any results? Think about this. If you're working on residential properties, and I use this explanation with residential customers, people that will contact us, through the internet and want to buy stuff for their house on their own. Were all the plants there before your house was built that are on that property currently? You might have a couple big trees or older trees that they decided not to remove in order to build the house. But all of that soil was disturbed in order to build that house. So the top 3 inches of soil, a lot of people like to say, oh, all the topsoil was stripped off and moved away. It probably wasn't. It probably was just disturbed. So you don't have the biology that was in the top 3 inches near that root system anymore when you try to get grass established. Same thing with the landscape beds right around the house and throughout the property. If the biology is not there anymore, it takes a long time for that to reestablish. So therefore, those plants have a dependency on the nutrients that you're going to put down, because it's very hard for them to find it otherwise. What was a straight funnel of nutrients to a root system for a native plant there is now like a labyrinth, where it's trying to work its way through the soil but doesn't know where it's going. The different conversion points aren't always next to each other, so it has to reestablish that colony and that ecosystem to be able to function in a fully functional soil food web. So you need all the trichoderma, the nematodes, the protozoa, the bacteria, the fungi. You need all of that in a kind of a tight spot so that it can function together. And that's why Bio 800 is designed the way that it's designed. There's marketing tools to help. We've worked with so many companies over the last really 12 years now in helping them tell this story. There's a tremendous amount of marketing material on our website, and even if you inquire within there to get more, I know that there's all the marketing toolboxes and stuff like that, but the amount of direct mail pieces, blog posts, things like that to help you tell the story to your consumer and to your prospects is really tremendous. And we don't hold, the rights to any of it. We don't restrict anyone in their use. So you can use it, throw your logo and company name on there, your phone number, and we call it R&D. You got to do R&D, rob and duplicate. So take it, use it however you see fit. You can pull it apart, do whatever you want with it, treat it as if it's your own. So here's a photo from Lawn Care Company in Virginia. And this was a typical result that they would see. And I believe that this was in late summer. That's why this, this is a pretty standard lawn photo. Sure, the lawn looks good. Am I going to show you one that looks bad? No. But it was the time of year where it was actually pretty impressive. And there was, I believe that that's a new maple tree that they had put in there. And given the time of year, they knew it was wrong to plant it then, but it was still doing well. It was actually pushing new growth. So they were able to avoid the transplant shock. But when you're getting a better, more predictable agronomic result, you're avoiding phone calls. That was really when I was running my own company and we started to scale up at a pretty rapid pace. Everything was about reducing callbacks and cancels. I was trying to build loyal customers that would refer more customers, and that was the most sustainable way to build a company. But I despised checking our voicemail when we would come back in on a Monday morning. Um, it wouldn't, when we were at the point of between 12 and 13,000 customers, it was not unheard of for us to, when the dandelions popped in the spring, that weekend we would come in the Monday morning after that, and it was possible that we would have 250 messages on our voicemail system. So, and that was just because the timing of, hey, our weeds are, we got weeds all over our property and blah. I want to avoid that at any cost. So if I'm able to build a thicker lawn that's just not going to have weeds popping up in it, that's everybody's goal. This product is specifically designed to do that. Not to mention, it's going to make your weed controls work better when you're tank mixing them, because of the natural biosurfactants that are in there and the ability to translocate the weed control in the plant faster. So if you have a better contact and a faster kill on the weeds, you're going to have much smaller bare spots to fill in, and then you're using that Bio 800 specifically to increase root density and thicken up that turf. It addresses it on both sides so that it's not a continuous problem, and it's something that you're going to be able to kind of grow out of with your company and not have a continuous problem year after year. And this is let's see, I can't remember the name of the lawn care company, and we typically don't put them up there anymore because we had some people approaching our lawn care companies. But this is they're a commercial contractor that deals with commercial properties, which can be very difficult because typically when you're working on commercial accounts, you are doing less applications than you would typically do for residential. You're dealing with a smaller margin, profit margin. So you can't make mistakes. You have to nail the application, and it's got to last. That was one of the most beneficial things that they noticed was that we just don't get the callbacks anymore, and we would lose money every single time that we had a callback on a commercial property. So when you're dealing with even more restrictions as far as like what profit margin you have to deal with, how difficult the requirements are for your specific customers, this is the type of predictability that you need. So how do you use Bio 800 lawn? It's 7 ounces per 1,000 square feet. It's a typical maintenance application. It tank mixes with pretty much anything. You don't want to tank mix with a fungicide, but most people that are using Bio 800 don't have that need for fungicides that they once had. So their use of fungicides dramatically drops. Rate reductions are possible across the board. It really depends on what you're using, but if it's something that you're looking at your program or incorporating Bio 800 into your program, doing it where you have more inputs rather than less is going to be more cost effective. We have a number of university studies that show, and we'll actually get to those slides, but yeah, you definitely will get reductions, not just on fertilizer, but weed control, fungicides, and even you could do it on pre-emergence. I always liked to just have better coverage on the pre-emergence rather than risking using less and potentially getting some breakthrough. There are on our website, there's Soil Smart programs. They're region based. If you are a professional lawn care company or landscape contractor, the Soil Smart program's not for you. If this is something that you're dabbling in or just getting started, it's kind of a good template for you to work off of. I think that there's only so much you can do with a lawn care program template for a region that's going to work for everybody and be cost effective. So yes, that Soil Smart program is going to work for everybody. Is it cost effective? Possibly not, especially when we have prices changing as much as they're changing right now. All right, how to use Bio 800 Lawn. This example is pretty cool. So these photos are taken at the same time, actually. So this was a car dealership, Audi, in case you didn't recognize the cars, that was in Oklahoma. It was all sodded, and a new irrigation system was put in and things like that. And they used Bio 800 and Blue Sky as their application. Now, the difference between the picture on the right and the picture on the left is they ran out of product. They were just doing like a sample size, and they ran out of product after they laid the sod and they watered it in. So the picture on the right is where the application was actually done. The picture on the left is where they didn't get to put down product. And this is only 3 days later. So you didn't even have enough time to really see the full result when these pictures were taken, but they were so shocked that there was this much of a difference. And the pictures tells you one thing. You can see the color difference, and you don't see the seams as much on the right. The really impressive thing was on the grass that's on the right, they went to pull up that sod and they could not pull it up. It was already rooted into the soil. I'm sure if they pulled hard enough, they could have got it up. But when they gave it a little tug, it didn't come up. And for the picture on the left, they could feel the sod moving under their feet when they walked over it. So extremely fast germination and rooting, which is really helpful. If you're doing any type of reconstruction, or if you do aeration and overseedings. We did thousands of aeration and overseedings each year, and I'll tell you that grass couldn't come up fast enough because, again, I was trying to avoid phone calls, and seed being limited now and extremely expensive. You just don't want to have the possibility of needing to go back out there and reseed anything. Like, you're immediately going to lose money if you have to go out there and reseed with the way that seed prices are now. Storing the Bio 800 lawn. So if you don't know, now you know. Bio 800 lawn needs to be stored cold because of the active biology that is within the product. We provide refrigeration for our end users to fit your need. That picture is one of our RAD 330 systems. It's a pretty slick system. There's actually a 330-gallon tote inside of that. Kept cold, kept circulated, and has a quick fill system that comes off of that for filling up the tanks on the trucks. The concentrate by itself could be stored up to 4 weeks outside of refrigeration. So it's not like it's you can't take it out and put it back in and move it around and things like that. You do have flexibility, but for long-term storage, you want to keep it cold so that it doesn't become too active and become out of balance. Even if it becomes active and goes out of balance, it's not harmful for the soil. But there's a balance between aerobic and anaerobic microbes in that product that we want to make sure that balance stays intact. And because of the limitation of oxygen within one of those jugs, it could become anaerobic, and it's going to smell a little swampy if it goes bad. But you still have all the sources of microbial food and nutrient enhancers that are in the product that if it went bad, you could put it out somewhere and know that you're not doing any harm. You're just not getting all the benefits out of it that you would if it was fresh product. I'd mentioned the university studies before. Here's and this is probably the one that everybody is focused on right now. So this is specifically on the fertility needed for optimum color and vigor. We had a lot of universities do this. This is actually a summary of that. And we used for the case of the summary, like there was a lot of universities that were in that 50% reduction, the 75% reduction, not so much the 88% reduction, but you can see NC State fell in that average. They were finding a 50% reduction in the need for nitrogen in order to accomplish the same results. Penn State, 75% reduction, and Purdue, 88% reductions. You know, when you are wondering whether or not Bio 800 is something that you could incorporate into your lawn care program because of budget, you should see what the cost of your fertilizer is nowadays, because I mean, the amount of fertilizer that I've seen double in price in the last 4 months has been remarkable. So if you had that happen and you're looking to cut back on your fertilizer, not even for the sake of the agronomics, not even for the sake of marketing to your customers, simply for the budget purpose, you should look at this and consider incorporating Bio 800 in to get that immediate reduction in fertilizer need. Let me move this. I got this little menu up in front of me and I can't switch the screen. All right, so with that being said, this is one of our good customers in South Carolina. Pretty decent size. The picture is South Carolina. Decent sized company that uses a lot of Bio 800. They use some of our fertilizers as well. But you can see it just, you know, wouldn't we all love to just have every lawn look like that? And especially when it's a southern exposure. People underestimate the damage that a southern exposure can take just from that. A little bit more sunlight, a little bit warmer soil temperatures. There's more insect activity on a southern exposure. So when it looks like that, you're doing something right. But Ultra Green is they're in Tennessee, Florida, and Arkansas. They actually have 50% less disease pressure despite reducing their fungicides, which I had referenced earlier. The lawns stay greener longer. So if you deal with drought situations, or if you're a lawn and landscape company that does cutting maintenance as well, and you get paid per cut, well, you want your season to start earlier and end later. That grass is going to be in a growth cycle, you know, for an extended period of time. But really, when I think about the lawn staying green longer, it's if you have a drought situation, if you have extreme temperatures. I had mentioned before, it's when you separate the men from the boys or the girls from the ladies, and that's when you're going to be able to gain customers and really start to strategically target some of your competition's customers and get them to be your customers. They also saw a 15 to 20% savings in material costs. Everybody always thinks that this is going to cost them more, and typically it's cost neutral. Right now, there's probably a cost benefit. So outside of everything else, you need to look at it just for the budget aspect of it. And they obviously gained a marketing advantage, being able to not just say that they did something, but they actually would cite our products in some of their literature that they would send out, and our website, and that just gives you credibility. If you start telling your customers, hey, this is one of the products that we use and why we can reduce some of your other inputs, there's so much data on our website that they can see that this is a real thing, and they can believe that and get behind it. Go Green, this is one of our neighbors, actually. They're about 10 miles away from us here in Pennsylvania, and they really stretched the limits as far as like how they did 4 applications a year. Their competition was typically doing 6 to 7 applications a year, but they would charge more per application, and they ended up with fuller, thicker lawns. It was obvious. I get to go around and see these lawns, you know, in different areas that I'm driving through on a regular basis, and there's a very obvious difference in just the thickness of the lawn, and when they apply fertilizer to it, where they really get a good bang for their buck. And I've seen their marketing advantage too, you know, with how they get to position themselves within the marketplace. You know, it doesn't say organic in their name. It doesn't say anything like that, but they will talk about the reduction of inputs and build in that credibility of having people and their salespeople know the verbiage for Holganix and know how to explain that and set expectations. You know, I spoke to their sales team last year, and they said, I hope that we never stop using your product because it's the easiest way for me to sell lawns. So having come from that background, I was a technician, I was in sales for lawn care. And I'll tell you, you find that angle and you know how to pitch it, it really makes a huge difference. Red Diamond Tea in Alabama, they reduced their fertilizer inputs. They reduced water over the course of 3 years by 75% on their properties. And they would always do seasonal changes of flowers. They actually got to start purchasing smaller flowers because they would mature so fast. So they got the money savings there, and it just the properties would look better. Cranberry Township, Pennsylvania, they reduced their nitrogen in the fertilizers by 28%. This is all high traffic areas, and obviously the improvement in their root depth and density made all the difference in the world. You know, that you have a better root system, you're going to be able to take in more nutrients. If you have more functional soil, more of those nutrients are going to get to the root system. So it's a win-win situation. So some of the resources, we have our ingredient list. You know, I'd referenced some of the ingredients, Soil Smart program, which I had spoken about. You know, you could take a look at it and it might answer some of your questions. But if you really want to dive into how it fits into your program, I would suggest there will be a link on the email that you get that will you'll be able to schedule a call with me. Has that link ties right into my schedule. So you pick a time and I'll give you a call. There's all the marketing support links are going to be in that email as well. There's ebooks, there's over 70 case studies, all the university studies, and the list of previous webinars and upcoming webinars. We try to make sure that you have as much information as possible so that you can use whatever you need to be successful. Lastly, this picture in the background, this is Desert Willow Golf Course in Las Vegas. And there's they use granular, they use liquid, they use Bio 800, they use PB1, they use Blue Sky, they use a lot of our products, and they are in very harsh conditions. If you look at the landscape bed there, that's pretty much the soil that they're starting with. It's all just like gravel there. So to get grass to cover those areas is really difficult. And Steve, the superintendent there, told me after he used the product for 2 years on that course, it was the first time they had wall-to-wall coverage in their grass areas without bare spots. Another interesting story, so if you see some of the plants in those landscape beds, that's the way that they used to look, and this picture is a few years old. They had leftover Bio 800 in one of their tanks, so they started just putting it on some of those plants along one of the holes on the golf course. And within about 3 weeks, those plants started to bloom. The interesting thing about that, the plants had never bloomed before. They didn't realize that they had flowers on them. So then they went and treated everything else and totally changed the look of the course with the added color with plants that were pre-existing there. The other thing that's notable about this, aside from huge root differences and playability and things like that, the PGA holds putting competitions on this course and on these greens. So when they have to roll right and they have to be predictable and consistent, the PGA isn't going to just pick any golf course to use just for greens. So the fact that they use this one and our products use there to increase how fast the greens are and how consistent they are tells you that it's doing something right. Hopefully I answered everyone's questions, and I appreciate the time that you took. Look for that email, schedule a call with me. My schedule is only going to get busier just like yours, so let's get it knocked out and out of the way and get you pointed in the right direction. And I wish everyone the best of luck, and I hopefully we don't see more price increases so that you guys can actually make some money out there. But again, thank you for your time, and until the next webinar, happy lawn caring.